blue. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not looking forward to this moment, but it must be done. I'm going to be reacting to my terrible Champions League group stage predictions that I made as soon as the draw was out. I was island hopping while the draw was released, but I still had to release my earliest thoughts. In some ways it paid off because obviously the video did very well, but at the same time nearly 140,000 people saw my dreadful predictions. Whatever, should be fun regardless. Guys, please drop another like, subscribe if you're new, and let's get into it, starting off with the group I already know I absolutely butchered. Group A, with Bayern Munich, Manchester United, Copenhagen, and Galatasaray. Two heavy favorites on paper in this group without a doubt, but anyone that's in a group with Bayern Munich knows that they could potentially be in trouble. This side, even if they don't win the Champions League, always have many one-sided matches going their way. Even last season, when Bayern Munich weren't the most consistent, they still topped their Champions League group. This group on the surface might not be so easy either. Obviously, Manchester United, despite slipping a few times in recent years, is still a highly valued squad, and the Turkish side Galatasaray have made some massive improvements to their team. This transfer window alone, they secured Icardi, Wilfried Zaha, Tete from Shakhtar, Ziyech from Chelsea, Angelino from RB Leipzig, not to mention the players they already possess such as Mertens, so I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if the Turkish side clinch a top 2 position and advance to the knockouts. However, it's going to be very tough against the Giants in this group. Like I said, Bayern Munich without a doubt I think will advance to the knockouts. Most seasons this club proves that they are a top elite Champions League side, always going to compete for that next set of rounds, so I'm going to say they get first place. I know I haven't talked much about Copenhagen yet. To be fair, they have made some interesting signings themselves, such as getting Elyounoussi from Southampton, Melling from Rennes, and Larsen from Schalke. However, prime examples Larsen and Elyounoussi both belonged in clubs that got relegated. Could prove me wrong, but I don't think this side have enough quality for this difficult group. I think it's safe to bank that this side will finish 4th. But who will get that second place spot? Manchester United or Galatasaray? We could easily see Galatasaray kind of shift many people's predictions here. So I wouldn't be surprised if head-to-head against Galatasaray, they do slip. However, by the end of the group stage run, I do see Manchester United clinching 2nd and Galatasaray fall short to 3rd, which would still mean they go to the Europa League. The only positions I got correct were Bayern Munich and Galatasaray, but Copenhagen, Manchester United completely shifted. Totally doubted Copenhagen. Very happy they proved me wrong, honestly. And also, I'm probably feeling the least guilty about getting this one wrong because I know so many people absolutely outrule this club, but they were fantastic in this group stage. Having a 2-0 lead away in Galatasaray until getting a red card which resulted in them conceding 2 late goals, still impressive to get a draw away, especially in that atmosphere. Then they very narrowly lost to Bayern Munich, once again narrowly lost to Manchester United, but after that match day it totally shifted. They were able to come back against them on their home ground, beating them 4-3, scoring 2 goals after the 83rd minute. That followed with a 0-0 draw in Munich, which at that point Bayern Munich have already secured knockout qualification, but between Copenhagen, Galatasaray, and Manchester United, everything was up in the air. The winner of Copenhagen Galatasaray would advance to the knockouts. Many people still going for Galatasaray as their transfer window just looked absolutely insane, but Copenhagen were able to get a 1-0 victory, meaning even if United were able to beat Bayern Munich, they still wouldn't advance to the knockouts themselves. Absolute shout out to Copenhagen. Very excited to see what they do in the round of 16, whoever they're paired up with. But moving on to Manchester United, at the beginning it really seemed like the worst case scenario for them would be Europa League. It just seems so doubtful to see them go all the way to 4th. But it happened, and they set new records as well for being so They are now the first English side in history to concede 15 goals in the Champions League group stage. They really fumbled too many matches against the quote-unquote underdogs. Their only win was against Copenhagen, like I mentioned, a 1-0 victory at Old Trafford, but they lost to Galatasaray at Old Trafford prior to that, and then when they had to go to Istanbul, they were up 2-0 by the 18th minute. Garnacho got a little bit too cocky trying to instigate the fans that early, as Ziyech even got a brace in that match later on, partially thanks to Onana's dreadful goalkeeping. This guy obviously proved himself in the last Champions League campaign, making it to the final with Inter Milan, but this time with United he's just seemed to fallen apart. Definitely not the first player that has signed for Manchester United to have a terrible start. Yeah, like I said, Manchester United could not even secure Europa League. They are officially out of European football. In not the easiest group, of course, you couldn't sleep on these underdogs, but it should have been doable for them. United have been underwhelming for some time now, but still, with their standards and their legacy in the past, this is just simply unacceptable. Not complaining though, once again, shout out to Copenhagen, and good luck to Galatasaray in the Europa League. Moving on to Group B, interestingly enough, 3 of these teams competed in the Europa League last year. Sevilla, who won the whole thing, Arsenal, PSV, and the one who hasn't was Lens. Arsenal are looking to make a proper return in the Champions League. They haven't been in this competition since the 2016-2017 season. Every year since then where they have played European football was in the Europa League. And right now they have a fantastic squad that can definitely have them push far in this competition. They have never won the whole thing in their entire history, but I do think that they can make a deep run. I know Arsenal didn't do as well as they wished to in the Europa League last season. However, I do think that they're going to take this competition very seriously, and I think they can handle this group. I think they definitely have what it takes to get first place. Now, PSV is very interesting to analyze as the club got rid of so many players and brought in a lot of new ones. Xavi Simons was fantastic for them. Their left back Philip Max has gone to Frankfurt, but they brought in the likes of Noah Lang, Schouten, and they also brought in 3 Americans, Ricardo Pepi, the center forward, Serginho Dest from Barcelona, and Malik Tillman. Sevilla, who I wouldn't be surprised automatically go to the Europa League since that's the competition they love and that's what happened to them last year, also got rid of a lot of players. Their goalkeeper from Morocco, Bono, has signed for Al Hilal, and Montiel has gone to Nottingham. But they signed Sal from Frankfurt, Luka Bacchio from Hertha, and the final club, Lens, also are going through a massive revamp. Fofana was brilliant for them last season, so I am a bit worried how they will cope without him. If I'm going to give it my best go, I'm going to say Sevilla do not make it to Europa League this year because they're going to get second place this time in the Champions League. PSV get third, and Lens fourth. Okay, once again got the first place position correct, but that wasn't too difficult to guess. I truly was torn about giving PSV that second place spot instead. The only team I felt confident in completely ruling out was Lens, and they even had some solid displays themselves. Sevilla by far disappointing. I know I wasn't going for a popular prediction here. I'm pretty sure most people were banking on Sevilla to get third, as they just love to kind of sneak their way into the Europa League, but they couldn't even do that. They finished last place with 0 wins, picking up 1 draw against PSV and Lens, but the second time they faced PSV, they blew a 2-0 lead. So far, a terrible season for Sevilla. They're not doing too hot in La Liga either, just outside the relegation zone at the moment. At least they can focus on the league now, but we still know of this club being a consistent competitor in European football. So definitely disappointing with them, despite Sergio Ramos setting the record of having the most goals scored as a defender in the Champions League. I gotta say big credit to Lens for proving me wrong. I really thought they would be outdone in this group, but picking up even a win against Arsenal at the very beginning set them on course to at least stay in European football. Very curious to see how PSV progress in the knockouts, as they've been flying in the Eredivisie. In the Champions League, they're not looking as potent, sometimes slipping, even losing to Arsenal 4-0 at one point, but it seems like they're kind of building momentum in European football with their very exciting squad. We'll see if they can keep it up. Now taking a look at Group C with Napoli, Real Madrid, Braga, and Union Berlin. Napoli obviously stunned the world last year. They were fantastic in the Serie A. They made it pretty far in the Champions League, also topping their group. Real Madrid obviously have the best legacy out of any club in this competition. However, at the moment, they don't look to be the favorites, in my opinion, to win the whole thing. I do think they'll still make it out of the group, but Courtois have just picked up a year-long injury, tearing his ACL. They've replaced him with Kepa. He looks very determined and motivated to represent the club. However, only time will tell for his performances. Also, they obviously just lost Karim Benzema as he's gone to Saudi Arabia, and have replaced him with Joselu, who I don't think will reach the same numbers Benzema usually gets year after year. Bringing on Jude Bellingham has been a massive plus, though. He has been phenomenal so far in La Liga. Arda Güler did get injured, unfortunately, right after they signed him, but they still have a lot of midfield depth in this club. Braga just pushed through over Panathinaikos to qualify for the Champions League. Not too long ago, they had an impressive Europa League run. And Union Berlin, this is one of the most admirable clubs at the moment. They've only been promoted to the Bundesliga in 2019 for the very first time as well, and 4 years later, they have qualified for the Champions League. Most people are going to favor Napoli and Real Madrid to qualify for the knockouts in this competition, and I'm going to have to agree. I am worried for Napoli how they will do without their manager Spalletti, who did resign after he won the Scudetto. But at the end of the day, I think this squad has a lot of great individuality that can handle the other teams in this group. So despite me potentially doubting how far Real Madrid can go later on, I definitely think that they will top the group. Napoli gets second place. Won't be upset if I'm wrong, but I'm going to go with Union Berlin getting third place and Braga fourth. Alright, so for this group, I got first and second place correct, just mixed up third and fourth. Braga will be the ones to play in European football, as Union Berlin have had a very, very terrible year so far. I mentioned those injuries and all that for Real Madrid, but regardless, they have still been phenomenal. 6 for 6 wins in this group. A few close fights here and there, but they have still very much proved their class and quality. With their clutch players like Jude Bellingham, it's never a good idea to write out this side in the Champions League. Union Berlin, despite being so disappointing, actually had really close fights against Real Madrid both times they faced them, only losing by 1 goal in both of the matches. On the final match day, they looked to have secured a draw at home, but Madrid couldn't go down easy. They wanted those 6 for 6 wins. Braga a few years ago had a very interesting run in the Europa League, so definitely don't sleep on them this year either. Going back to Union Berlin though, hopefully they pick it up. They've had such an incredible rise last season, it's a shame to see them do so poorly now. Moving on to Group C, we got Benfica, Inter Milan, Salzburg, and Real Sociedad. Let's not forget about how great of a run Benfica had until they did have to face Inter Milan in the Champions League. They fell out of form once they came up against them, but before then they topped their group over the likes of Juventus and PSG, all on the final match day as well, and then demolished Club Brugge in the round of 16. Now, just like many clubs we already talked about, this squad has changed a bit. No more Ramos, but they have acquired Di Maria. Also in the center forward position, they have the Brazilian Cabral. And in the midfield, they acquired the Turkish Koçku, who was fantastic for Feyenoord. Honestly, Benfica do look to have what it takes to get first place still, just like last season. However, it's tough to say against the side that they did get knocked out to last year as well, like I mentioned. It's definitely going to be either Benfica or Inter Milan that do get first place. Regardless though, I'm saying both clubs do advance to the knockouts of the Champions League. Which club will have a more favorable round of 16 matchup though, quote unquote? I think you can argue that both clubs are missing some potential key components, but I'm going to just favor Benfica here. I won't be surprised if Inter top the group. It's very tough to call, but I'm going Benfica first, Inter Milan second. I do think Real Sociedad has what it takes to get third place, and Salzburg get knocked out to fourth. Real Sociedad haven't had the most brilliant start to La Liga so far. No wins, no losses, just 3 draws. But let's not forget last season they topped their group in the Europa League over Manchester United. I think this squad will have their moments for sure and get a Europa League position bare minimum. 2 placements correct here, Inter Milan and Salzburg. Should have switched up Benfica and Real Sociedad. Now, Benfica, it just feels like I am the ultimate jinxer for this club. As last season, I heavily doubted them. They topped that difficult group. This time, I heavily believed in them to do wonders, and they only just clinched third place at the end. They were looking so bad throughout the entire campaign, picking up their first win on the final match day. With all those incredible signings I mentioned, I'm really surprised they weren't able to do more. This was the year Benfica could have set some Champions League records as well, with the likes of Di Maria potentially becoming the top assister in the Champions League. Speaking of Real Sociedad though, them getting first place just over Inter Milan, sharing the same amount of points, is truly impressive. This side are looking to be in top-notch form, just really losing in La Liga to the big dogs, and along with topping their Champions League group now, they'll be very happy to get that first place spot, as they will be now in pot 1 instead of Inter Milan, which could potentially lead them to a more easy route in the Champions League knockouts. This could be the dark horse side this year for all we know, with the likes of Oyarzabal and Kubo racking up loads of goals. Inter Milan regardless still have some incredible patches of form. Prior to them drawing with Real Sociedad on the final match day, they picked up some massive wins. So just because this side failed to get first place at the end does not mean we should count them out, even if they face a pretty tough team in the round of 16. I don't know if they'll make it all the way to the final again, but they're still a very solid competitor in this competition. The only thing I'm really embarrassed for getting wrong here is putting Benfica first, because it was far from it. Look at that point gap between first and second versus third and fourth. Absolutely dreadful. Salzburg only had that glimpse of hope at the beginning, beating Benfica, but after that, unfortunately, they had a forgetful campaign. Now for Group E, what a group. You've got Feyenoord, Atletico Madrid, Lazio, and Celtic. Now, Feyenoord and Lazio were in the same exact Europa League group last season, where every single team in this group got 8 points. It was unbelievable. 2 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses. When they did face each other in the Europa League, each of the sides got 1 win against one another. You've got to love Feyenoord's manager Arne Slot. He was rumored to go to Tottenham, but he has stayed loyal to his club as he believes in their project. They lost one of their best midfielders from last season, Koçku, but let's not forget that this club won the Eredivisie last season after they got rid of many top players from the years before. So regardless, this squad is going to keep their identity, and they have brought in some very interesting signings. If we're going to talk about performances from last season though, Atletico Madrid will not be proud of theirs. Last year, they got knocked out of the group stage in the Champions League. 4th place in what was supposed to be a doable group with Porto, Club Brugge, and Leverkusen. With such a strong squad and Diego Simeone as manager, it should be better than that. However, they have had some interesting advancements, as Piliqueta, a veteran for Chelsea, can definitely be an addition to the back line. And despite Atletico Madrid falling in the UCL, Griezmann really did pick up his form over the year. In Europe, we've seen Lazio as a very tough team to predict. They fell short to the Conference League after sharing points with every single team in the Europa League, and eventually got knocked out to Alkmaar. So it seems like the Dutch teams do curse this club. Just like the other groups, anything is possible in this one as well. I think Feyenoord has what it takes to advance. In fact, I'm going to go bold and say they get first place. Maybe not even such a bold take. They really have been in fantastic form. Maybe it can dip, of course, but I do trust Arne Slot. Simple as that. Really never seems to lose the identity with this club. I think Atletico will have a more successful season this time around the Champions League. Maybe not dominate the group, but they will get second place. Lazio third and Celtic fourth. Well, it definitely ended up being a very bold take. I think most people went for this prediction, but I decided to bank more on Feyenoord after their incredible season last year. I thought Lazio would have way more shaky moments throughout this campaign, but instead they were absolutely clutch this time around, getting many late difference maker goals, even from the likes of their goalkeeper against Atletico Madrid on the first match day. Shout out to them, and the reason why I thought Atletico Madrid would not clinch first is because they were so terrible last year, 4th place. I still had the feeling they would get knockouts this time, but I just thought it wouldn't be the most prolific campaign. However, they're looking to be in top form. Like I mentioned in the video, Griezmann is very much back in form. Morata looking a lot more deadly up top as well. I just thought Feyenoord would boss it, and they could not. 4 losses, just 2 wins. To be fair, they were missing their main man, Santiago Jimenez, in 2 matches, who has had amazing moments in the Eredivisie, but his absence against Atletico Madrid in one of the fixtures was definitely present. But regardless, even if he was there for that match against Atletico Madrid that he was absent for, and did score the goals, the table would look the exact same. Just less of a point gap. Feyenoord definitely fell short here with just 6 points. Atletico Madrid at the top though, undefeated. Getting some massive results as well, including defeating Celtic 6-0. Yeah, definitely not my proudest group for sure. Definitely feel more guilty about getting this one wrong compared to likes of Group A, because I know for a fact most people got Group A wrong. But Group E, definitely most people did get correct. We'll see if Lazio can continue to provide those clutch moments in the knockout stage. It's genuinely impressive considering they're not doing the hottest in the Serie A. But to be fair, only 4 points behind the top 4 despite sitting 10th place. Next up, probably the most intense group in the Champions League. None of these teams are thrilled to face each other. PSG, Borussia Dortmund, AC Milan, and Newcastle. Newcastle haven't played in the Champions League in a very long time, so since their return, they come out with one of the most difficult scenarios. None of these teams are going to be easy, but I do think they have what it takes to push through. Finishing in the top 4 obviously, but getting 4th place in the Premier League is very impressive. With the squad that they have not only heavily upgraded this transfer window, but also many of their players have looked to really find their form over the years, such as Alexander Isak. I do see him scoring loads of goals in the Premier League in particular, and I wouldn't be surprised if his form translates to the Champions League. Now, AC Milan are getting a lot of praise from many, as like I said, they did sell Tonali to Newcastle, which obviously gave them a lot of funds to go all out in the transfer window. The midfield depth, without a doubt, has improved as they signed the likes of Loftus-Cheek, Musa, and Reinders. Without a doubt, these are some fantastic signings. I'm just not entirely sure if we can be 100% convinced on them yet. Of course, last time I did doubt AC Milan quite a bit, and they made it very far in the Champions League, all the way to the semis. So we could see them have yet another solid run. PSG, we could end up seeing them slipping. With Luis Enrique in charge, I think he has enough time to sort of get organized, maybe have a few slips here and there, but I still see PSG, despite being in a very difficult group without a doubt. I could be wrong on this. They finished 2nd last time around, I know, but I'm saying they still get 1st place. Dortmund are a very solid side without a doubt, but they really haven't made many advancements with their squad, even after making a lot of cash off of Jude Bellingham. They signed Mecha and Sabitzer, but I don't know if they're much of difference makers to face such quality teams in this group. I don't mean to disrespect them, but I'm going to put them at 4th. It feels criminal to put any of these teams at 4th, obviously, but that's my pick. For 2nd, who's it going to be? AC Milan or Newcastle? For sure, I'm torn about this, and after AC Milan's last season, I think most people are going to go for them to advance to the knockouts. As also I said, many people are very impressed with their transfer window, but I'm going to favor Newcastle to get 2nd place. So AC Milan go to the Europa League. This group was filled with absolute drama. It was way too tough to call any outcome here, and it really did seem safe for many people, I know not just me, to put Dortmund at last place. and they topped the group. Not only that, also securing a knockout spot on the second to last match day. It looked to be all over the place at first after getting a loss to PSG at the beginning, but they picked themselves up after that, beating Newcastle both times, defeating AC Milan, and drawing to PSG at the end. But yeah, on that final match day, the only thing that was certain was that Dortmund were going to make it to the knockouts. For everyone else, it was up for grabs. I gotta say, PSG got a bit lucky to secure a knockout spot. They really did not have the most convincing Champions League campaign. The fact that they shared points with third place Milan on. And also the fact that Milan won their final match against Newcastle. If Newcastle were the ones victorious, we would be seeing them in the round of 16 instead. However, they fell short. They are completely out of European football now. So I can't say I feel too guilty about getting this group completely incorrect because the possibilities seemed endless. Just a bit embarrassed on getting Dortmund completely off. Seems so easy to write them off. A lot of great players leaving the club, just bottling the Bundesliga. Despite this side's quality, it just really seemed like they weren't going to go into this Champions League campaign the most convincing. But being a P1 team as well above PSG, at this rate, I see PSG once again getting knocked out in the round of 16. After their performances against Newcastle, like I said, they really got lucky to be in this position. The only matchup I could see them winning is if they have to face Barcelona, but we'll get into them later. A group that's a bit easier to potentially call though is Group G. Manchester City, RB Leipzig, Crvena Zvezda, and Young Boys. Manchester City, the previous champions, without a doubt they're going to get first in this group. If they don't, that would be shocking. For second place, I think it's safe to go with Leipzig. Yes, like I mentioned, they did get rid of Guardiola. They also got rid of Szoboszlai, Christopher Nkunku, Leimer, Andre Silva, but they also signed a lot of course, young talent. Openda from Lens, Lukeba from Lyon, Xavi Simons on loan, the list goes on. They're still keeping the reputation of having a lot of elite young talent. Already some fantastic players on the squad as well. For example, Dani Olmo, who grabbed a hat-trick against Bayern Munich not too long ago. Easy second place for me. Now for third and fourth, this is tough between Young Boys and Crvena Zvezda. Crvena Zvezda last season amongst all the European teams, believe it or not, are the only ones to be completely undefeated in terms of the top flight leagues. Domestically, of course, because in Europa League, they did get knocked out early. But I think now they have the chance to go back to Europa League and maybe, just maybe in that playoff round, pull through and advance further in the knockouts. So I'm going to say they get third and Young Boys finish fourth. My Balkan bias costed me here. I really thought Crvena Zvezda had what it takes to finish third. But just like last year, once again, a very disappointing European campaign. Last time they got knocked out in the Europa League group stage. This time in the Champions League. Of course, Leipzig and Manchester City were going to be tough tasks, but not even being able to beat Young Boys head-to-head. And then on the final match day, they lost at their home ground against Manchester City, of course, but it was not their strongest lineup. A lot of their reserve players. Not a single win registered for Crvena Zvezda. Quite a shame. Young Boys didn't impress too much either, but at least they did grab that win against Red Star Belgrade. The rest obviously not surprising whatsoever. Manchester City topping the group with 6 for 6 wins. Leipzig, the only time they fell short was to Manchester City. Most people saw that coming. Thankfully, I did as well. But not much to show off for, really. But yeah, I believe this means Manchester City are 20 matches unbeaten in European football, which is pretty cool. And finally, the last group we're looking at, Group H, with Barcelona, Porto, Shakhtar, and Antwerp. Barcelona in European competitions under Xavi have not been successful, having a very solid run, looking like juggernauts in the Europa League not too long ago, and then getting knocked out to Frankfurt at home at the Camp Nou. Then after that, last season in the Champions League, they got eliminated, sent to the Europa League, and then immediately got knocked out to Manchester United. To be fair, their group back then was very difficult. Like I mentioned, one of the tougher groups in the Champions League. Maybe not as chaotic as the current Group F, but this time around, they do look to be favorites in this group. This squad still has a legacy and quality to get first place. I'm going to say they're able to do it. Now, Porto do look to be favorites to get second place. Shakhtar, although they have a lot of other young Ukrainian prospects, they might not be as electric without the likes of Mudryk. I think it's going to be a close battle with Antwerp, as they were really solid last year, winning the Belgian Pro League in the dying minutes, as them, Genk, and Union St. Galois all had a race of their own. They currently possess a few injuries in the back line, but who knows, Alderweireld can still captain the side to glory. At this point, it's really tough to call, but I'm going to go for Shakhtar third and Antwerp fourth. The last group we're looking at, but finally I get one group completely correct. If I didn't, that would be a shame. And to be fair, it really broke down to that final match day. Shakhtar putting up a very interesting fight against Porto for that second place spot. A match that finished 5-3. Very impressed with Shakhtar's campaign. They were able to defeat Barcelona as well. It's a bit of a shame that they have to fall to the Europa League, but still, at least they can continue to play in Europe. And maybe they have a better chance to do something in that competition. Barcelona did beat Porto head-to-head, which is why they have first place over them, as they share the same amount of points. And they're really a bit lucky for that outcome, because they fell short to Shakhtar and also Antwerp. Antwerp on the final match day got their first ever Champions League win against Barcelona. 2 stoppage time goals from both sides as well. Barcelona have been rotating through quite a few injuries, to be fair, but recently they are not looking to be in the best form after also just losing to Girona in La Liga, conceding 4 there, and now they conceded 3 to Antwerp. Sure, they were not playing their best ever lineup, but there still leaves a few question marks here. The defense not looking so great, and also Ter Stegen being absent with the long injury could cost them very much. There's time for Barcelona to improve, but at this current moment of time, I would not say they're one of the stronger teams in Pot 1. If I were any Pot 2 team, I would very much be happy to get them over the likes of Bayern Munich, Manchester City, of course. But at this rate, Dortmund would be a more difficult team to get. No chance in hell if Barcelona were in that group instead of Borussia Dortmund that they would have finished first. So yeah, congratulations for making it out to the end, Barcelona, but right now, I would say it's a bit worrying times. We'll see if they can improve though. But yeah, guys, there you have it. Those were my awful Champions League predictions that I made as soon as the draw happened. Next time, I might need to give myself a little bit more time before I release something, or at least release an early prediction and a final prediction. But yeah, I'm sure most of you did better than me. Let me know though in the comments how you guys did overall. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you all very, very soon. Take care. Lá com nós.